A sergeant makes a promise to a German nurse during the darkest days of World War II, never knowing it would change both their lives forever. "I won't let you suffer anymore," he whispers in a cold French barn as enemy prisoners huddle in straw. But this nurse harbors a dangerous secret. The frail old man she protects isn't her father. He's a Jewish professor with forged papers, and discovery means death for them both. As their forbidden connection deepens, a ruthless lieutenant grows suspicious, watching their every move. The sergeant must choose between his duty and his heart when the truth is finally exposed. In a world torn apart by hatred, can a simple act of mercy bloom into something more? What happens when an American farm boy and a German nurse dare to see beyond uniforms and borders? And when the war finally ends, will their promise survive the ocean between them? Subscribe now to follow this incredible true story of courage, faith, and love against impossible odds. The cold bit through Henry Lawson's worn army coat as he sat up in his cot. Morning light crept through the cracks of the old French barn, painting thin yellow lines across the dirt floor. He wrapped his threadbare scarf around his neck and rubbed his eyes. Another day guarding German prisoners, another day of war. Henry's boots crunched on the frozen straw as he walked to the main part of the barn. The smell hit him first. Wet hay, unwashed bodies, and fear. 20 German prisoners huddled on the ground, their breath making small clouds in the cold air. Some were soldiers in dirty uniforms. Others were civilians caught in the wrong place. "Roll call in 5 minutes, barked Sergeant Miller, the head guard. "Lawson, you're on the back stall today." "Yes, sir," Henry said, straightening his back. As Henry walked to his post, he noticed 2 new prisoners sitting apart from the others. One was a frail woman with dark blonde hair tied back in a simple knot. Next to her sat an older man with thin white hair and tired eyes. They didn't look like soldiers. The woman's hands were small and clean, her face thin but gentle. The old man coughed into his sleeve, his shoulders shaking. Roll call started, each prisoner standing when their name was called. When the guard reached the woman, he called out, "Anna Schmidt." She stood slowly. "Present," she said in a soft voice with a German accent. "Heinrich Weber," the guard called next. The old man tried to stand but wobbled. Anna helped him up, her arm steady under his. "He is present," she said. After roll call, the prisoners were given their morning ration, a small piece of bread and a cup of watery soup. Henry watched as Anna took her bread and secretly broke off a piece, sliding it to the old man when she thought no one was looking. Henry saw it but said nothing. Rules were rules, but he wasn't the kind of man who'd let someone go hungry if he could help it. Back home in Kansas, his ma had taught him better. Throughout the morning, Henry kept an eye on the pair. The old man, Heinrich, though Anna called him Vater, which Henry knew meant father in German, seemed to get weaker as the hours passed. Anna sat close to him, sometimes whispering words Henry couldn't hear. When lunchtime came, the same small rations were passed out. Again, Anna hid most of her bread. This time, the guard checking rations was Jenkins, a man known for his harsh treatment of prisoners. "You there, girl," Jenkins said, walking toward Anna. "Show me your ration." Anna's face went pale. Henry knew if Jenkins found out she was giving away her food, she'd be punished. "She ate it already," Henry said, stepping forward. "I saw her." Jenkins looked at Henry with narrow eyes. "You sure about that, Lawson?" "Yes, sir," Henry said, standing tall. "I was watching this section like you told me to." Jenkins grunted and moved on. Anna's eyes met Henry's for a moment, a silent thank you, before she looked down again. That afternoon, as the other guards took a break, Henry walked to the back of the barn. He pulled a piece of bread from his own ration and quietly handed it to Anna. "Eat," he whispered. "You need strength too." Anna looked up, surprise in her blue eyes. "Why?" she asked softly. Henry thought about it for a moment. "Because it's right," he finally said. "I won't let you suffer anymore." A tear slipped down Anna's cheek. She took the bread with shaking hands. "Danke," she whispered. "Thank you." That night, after all the prisoners were settled for sleep, Henry sat alone in the small side room where the guards took turns resting. He pulled out the small Bible his mother had given him before he left for war. The pages were worn from many reading. "Lord," he prayed quietly, "help me do what's right, even when it's hard, even when it's not in the orders." Henry knew helping prisoners could get him in trouble, but as he thought of Anna's grateful eyes, he felt sure he was doing the right thing. Snow fell during the night, covering the ground with a thick white blanket. When Henry stepped outside at dawn, the world was quiet and clean, as if the war had been washed away, but it was only an illusion. The barn was still full of prisoners, and he was still their guard. Inside, Anna was already awake. She had torn a small piece from her thin blanket and was dipping it in a cup of melted snow. Gently, she pressed it to Vater's forehead. The old man's face was flushed with fever. His breathing labored. "He's sick," Henry said, kneeling beside them. Anna nodded, worry creasing her forehead. His chest, the cold. Henry looked around to make sure no other guards were watching. Then he pulled a small tin cup from his pocket. I brought extra soup. The cook had surplus. It wasn't true. Henry had given up his own breakfast, but Anna didn't need to know that. Danke, Anna said, taking the cup with careful hands. Thank you. She helped Vater sit up and brought the cup to his lips. The old man drank slowly, his hands too weak to hold the cup himself. You speak English well, Henry said. My mother taught languages, Anna explained in a low voice. Before the war. Before Henry could ask more, Sergeant Miller's voice boomed through the barn. All prisoners outside for head count, now! Anna helped Vater to his feet, but he was unsteady. Another prisoner, a young man with a bandaged arm, came to help. Together, they shuffled toward the door. Outside, the snow was blinding in the morning light. The prisoners stood in a ragged line, shivering in the cold. Halfway through the count, a thin man near the end of the line collapsed into the snow. Without hesitation, Anna broke from the line and rushed to his side. She rolled him onto his back and checked his breathing. Get back in line, shouted a guard, moving toward her with his rifle raised. Wait, Henry said, stepping between them. Sir, she's helping him. The officer in charge walked over, his face stern. What's happening here? Sir, Henry explained. This woman is a trained nurse. The prisoner is ill. The officer looked at Anna, who was checking the fallen man's pulse. Is this true? He asked her. Yes, Anna said, not looking up. He has fever. Very bad. Needs medicine. The officer thought for a moment, then nodded. Take him back inside. The woman can tend to him until the medic arrives. 2 guards helped carry the sick man back to the barn. Anna followed, casting a quick glance at Henry. Her eyes were wary, but held a small flicker of hope that hadn't been there before. The next day brought Father Benoit to the barn. The local priest was a small man with kind eyes and a quiet voice. He came often, bringing small comforts, extra bandages, a few medicines, and most importantly, hope. Bonjour, Sergeant Lawson, he greeted Henry. I have come to help with the sick. Thank you, Father, Henry said. We have 3 with fever now. Inside, Anna was already tending to the ill, moving from one to another with quiet efficiency. She had torn more strips from her own blanket to use as cool compresses. Ah, Father Benoit said, watching her. She has the healing touch. She's been a big help, Henry admitted. Says she's a nurse. The priest began unpacking his small bag of supplies. The baker's wife sent bread, he said, pulling out a cloth-wrapped loaf. Perhaps for those who need it most? Henry nodded, understanding the priest's meaning. I'll make sure it gets to them. Later, as the prisoners ate their evening meal, Henry approached Father Benoit again. Father, is there any way to get more food? The rations? They're not enough for the sick ones. Father Benoit considered this. I will speak with the baker. His daughter has a kind heart. Thank you, Henry said. It's just, that woman, Anna. She gives half her food to the old man. She'll get sick too if she keeps going like this. You care for her well-being, the priest observed. I care for all of them, Henry said quickly. It's my job to keep them alive until what? Until the war ended? Until they were sent to another camp? Henry didn't know. Father Benoit patted his arm. It is good to care, my son. God sees your heart. That evening, as the barn quieted for the night, Henry found Anna sitting alone by a small window. Moonlight silvered her face, making her look ghostly and beautiful at the same time. May I? Henry asked, gesturing to the space beside her. Anna nodded. How's your father? Henry asked. A shadow passed over Anna's face. Better today. Thank you for the extra food. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Anna spoke again, her voice soft as the falling snow outside. My mother loved to sing, she said suddenly, every night before bed, even when the bombs fell. Henry tried to imagine it, a family singing while the world exploded around them. My ma used to sing too, he said. Church songs mostly. Where is home? Anna asked. Kansas, Henry replied. Got a small farm there. Wheat mostly. Nothing much to look at, but the sunsets. He smiled at the memory. Whole sky turns gold and red, like God's painting it just for us. It sounds beautiful, Anna said. It is, Henry agreed. What about you? Where's home? Anna's eyes darkened. It's gone now. Dresden. She didn't say more, and Henry didn't ask. He'd heard about the bombing of Dresden. The next evening, Henry stayed late in the barn. Most of the other guards were in the farmhouse where they slept, but Henry had volunteered for night watch. As the prisoners settled onto their thin blankets, Henry knelt in a corner and bowed his head. The Lord is my shepherd, he whispered. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. The familiar words of Psalm 23 comforted him, as they had since childhood. As he finished praying, he heard a small sound and looked up. Anna stood a few feet away, watching him with curious eyes. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I did not mean to spy." "It's all right," Henry said, standing up. "Just saying my prayers." "My mother also prayed," Anna said softly. "Every night." Before Henry could respond, Anna turned and hurried back to where Vader slept. Henry watched her go, wondering what her story really was. He didn't have to wait long to find out. Late that night, as he made his rounds checking on the prisoners, he heard soft voices coming from Anna's corner. "You must eat more, Professor," Anna was whispering. "Please, for my mother's sake." "Professor?" Henry paused, listening. "Anna," the old man's voice was weak but clear. "You risk too much for me. If they discover who I am—" "They won't," Anna insisted. "Just rest now." Henry stepped back, his mind racing. The old man wasn't her father, and he wasn't just any prisoner either. The next night, when the barn was quiet, Henry approached Anna as she sat by the sleeping old man. "He's not your father, is he?" Henry asked quietly. Fear flashed in Anna's eyes. "Please," she whispered. "I can explain." "I'm not here to report you," Henry assured her. "I just want to understand." Anna looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing how much to trust him. Finally, she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "His name is Professor David Weiss. He taught mathematics with my mother at the university. He is Jewish." The last word was spoken so softly Henry almost missed it. Henry's heart sank. A Jewish man posing as a German soldier. If the Germans found out, they would kill him. If the Americans discovered the deception, the Germans were searching for him, Anna continued. "My mother hid him in our cellar for 2 years. When the bombing started, we fled. The Americans captured us on the road." Her eyes filled with tears. "My mother did not survive the journey." "I'm sorry," Henry said, and meant it. "If they discover his true identity—" Anna couldn't finish the sentence. "The Germans would kill him," Henry said. "And the Americans might send him back to Germany for lying about who he is," Anna added. "There is still chaos there. It would not be safe." Henry knew she was right. Rules were rules in war, but sometimes rules forgot about mercy. "I won't tell anyone," he promised. Anna's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you, but be careful," Henry warned. "Don't trust anyone else, not even the other prisoners." Anna nodded solemnly. As Henry turned to go, she caught his sleeve. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. Henry thought about his mother's Bible, about the wheat fields of Kansas, about all he'd seen in this terrible war. "Because in all this madness," he said slowly, "we have to remember we're still human." As the night deepened, Anna sat clutching a worn letter, the last one from her mother. The paper was thin from many readings, the ink smudged with tears. In the dim light, she whispered a prayer for guidance, for protection, for the kind American sergeant who had become her unexpected ally in a world gone mad. The next 2 days brought a rhythm of care and caution. Anna, with Henry's quiet support, helped treat wounds and illnesses among both the prisoners and the injured American soldiers. Word spread of her gentle skill, and even some of the officers began to notice how the spirits of the men improved under her care. Father Benoit kept his promise, bringing extra bread, a gift from the baker's daughter, he said with a wink, which Anna carefully divided among the weakest prisoners, always saving a piece for fodder. Henry's fellow guards began to notice his special attention to Anna and the old man. Some gave him questioning looks. Others made comments under their breath. Henry ignored them, but he knew the risk was growing. One night, returning to his cot after a long day, Henry found something on his blanket, a small wooden cross, roughly carved but beautiful in its simplicity. He knew immediately who had made it. Smiling, he slipped it into his shirt pocket, close to his heart, drawing strength from it during the long night watches. The peaceful routine shattered on a stormy afternoon when the rumble of trucks announced the arrival of a convoy. Henry stood at attention as stretchers of wounded Allied soldiers were carried into the already crowded barn. Rain lashed against the wooden walls, and thunder rolled across the sky like distant artillery. "Make room," Sergeant Miller ordered. "Put the new wounded by the east wall." The barn erupted into activity. Medics rushed in with supplies, guards repositioned prisoners, and officers shouted orders that echoed in the rafters. Through it all, Anna watched with concerned eyes, her hands automatically reaching for clean cloths. Father Benoit arrived shortly after, his black coat soaked with rain. "I came as soon as I heard," he told Henry. "How can I help?" Before Henry could answer, a harried medic approached them. "We're short-handed. The doctor can't be here until morning." His eyes landed on Anna. "I heard there's a nurse among the prisoners?" Henry nodded. "Yes, sir. She's been caring for the sick here." The medic looked doubtful. "A German?" She's good, Henry assured him. Saved 3 with fever last week. After a moment's hesitation, the medic nodded. All right, we need all the help we can get. But she's your responsibility, Sergeant. Henry went to Anna and explained the situation. Her eyes widened, but she nodded resolutely. I will help, she said, rising to her feet. What about... Henry glanced at Fodder, who was sleeping on his thin blanket. I will watch over him, Father Benoit offered. You two go. For hours, Anna worked alongside the American medics, treating frostbite, cleaning wounds, and setting broken bones. Her movements were quick but gentle, her focus unwavering. Henry assisted where he could, bringing water, holding lamps, and offering words of comfort to the injured men. One young soldier grabbed Henry's sleeve as Anna cleaned a gash on his forehead. She's German? He asked, his voice weak. Yes, Henry admitted. The soldier was quiet for a moment, then said, She's got kind hands. It wasn't what Henry expected to hear, and it warmed his heart. As night fell, the storm outside grew fiercer. Wind howled through cracks in the barn walls, and rain dripped through holes in the roof. Despite the cold and damp, Anna continued her work without complaint, moving from one patient to the next with tireless dedication. It was nearly midnight when a new jeep splashed through the mud outside. The barn door swung open, letting in a gust of wind and rain, along with a tall officer Henry hadn't seen before. Lieutenant Carver, Sergeant Miller said, saluting. Welcome to Camp 27, sir. Lieutenant Carver was a lean man with sharp features and cold eyes. He surveyed the barn with a critical gaze, taking in the rows of wounded men, the German prisoners huddled in corners, and the makeshift medical station where Anna was bandaging a soldier's arm. What's this? He demanded, striding toward them. A prisoner treating our men? Henry stepped forward. Sir, we're short-handed. She's a trained nurse and has been a great help. Carver's eyes narrowed. I don't care if she's Florence Nightingale. Prisoners don't treat Allied soldiers. He turned to Miller. Get her back with the others immediately. But sir, Henry protested, That's an order, Sergeant. Carver cut him off coldly. And I want a full report on how this arrangement came to be. As Miller led Anna back to the prisoners' area, Carver pulled Henry aside. You seem quite concerned about this woman, Sergeant. I'm concerned about all the wounded, sir, Henry replied evenly. Carver didn't look convinced. I've heard reports of special treatment for certain prisoners here. That stops now. I run a tight operation by the book. Yes, sir, Henry said, his stomach nodding. I'll be watching you, Sergeant Lawson, Carver added before walking away. Henry found Anna sitting beside Vodder, who was awake and looking worried. Father Benoit had left, promising to return in the morning. What happened? Vodder asked in a whisper. New officer, Henry explained quietly, strict. Anna's face was pale in the dim light. He will cause problems, she said. Henry couldn't disagree. Just keep your heads down. Don't draw attention. And you? Anna asked. You should not risk yourself for us. I'll be fine, Henry assured her, though he wasn't certain it was true. The next morning, Lieutenant Carver began implementing new rules. Prisoners were no longer allowed to help with any tasks outside their designated areas. Guards were rotated so none became too familiar with specific prisoners. And most worrisome for Henry, Carver announced a review of all prisoner documentation. Every paper will be checked, he declared during morning roll call. Every face matched to records. We've had reports of spies trying to hide among legitimate POWs. Henry's heart sank. He looked at Anna, who stood rigid beside Vodder, her face a careful mask that couldn't quite hide her fear. They both knew what a thorough check would reveal. That the man beside her was not Heinrich Weber, German soldier, but David Weiss, Jewish mathematician. Throughout the day, Henry tried to find a moment alone with Anna, but Carver seemed to be everywhere at once, his sharp eyes missing nothing. It wasn't until evening, when the rain finally stopped and the prisoners were allowed a brief time outside for fresh air, that Henry managed to approach her. The train orders came in, he said in a low voice, pretending to check her ID card. They're moving everyone to the central camp next week. Anna's breath caught. They will check everything there, she whispered. I know. Henry wanted to offer reassurance, but false hope would be cruel. We need a plan. What can we do? Anna asked, desperation edging her voice. Meet me in the loft after lights out, Henry said. We'll figure something out. That night, as the barn settled into uneasy sleep, Henry made his way to the small hayloft at the far end. Moonlight spilled through a gap in the roof, creating a pool of silver light on the dusty floor. Anna was already there, a shadow among shadows. We don't have much time, Henry said, sitting beside her. I know, Anna replied. Fodder is getting weaker. The journey. She didn't finish, but Henry understood her fear. The old man might not survive a long train ride in winter. Listen, Henry said, taking her cold hands in his. I've been thinking. There might be a way to get you both out before the transfer. Anna's eyes widened. How? Father Benoit has connections in the village. People who helped hide Jews during the occupation. Henry had heard whispers among the locals, stories of secret rooms and midnight escapes. It would be dangerous, Anna said. For them, for you. Everything about this war is dangerous, Henry replied with a sad smile. At least this would be dangerous for the right reason. Anna was quiet for a long moment. Why do you risk so much for us? She finally asked. You barely know us. Henry thought about his mother's words before he left Kansas. Remember who you are, Henry. Not just a soldier, but a man of God. Because it's right, he said simply. And because, he hesitated, then pushed on. Because I've come to care about what happens to you. In the silvered moonlight, Henry could see tears shining in Anna's eyes. I care too, she whispered. More than I should. A sudden sharp whistle cut through the night, the signal for the next shift change. Reality crashed back around them. I have to go, Henry said reluctantly, but I promise you this. I will keep you and Vader safe, no matter what. Anna touched his face gently, her fingers cool against his skin. And I promise to keep faith, for both of us. Dawn broke cold and clear the next day. In the distance, the clang of the train bell at the village station served as a stark reminder of the coming transfer. Henry watched as the prisoners packed their few belongings, a spare shirt, a worn photo, a treasured letter. Anna carefully helped Vader fold his thin blanket. The old man seemed frailer each day, his hands trembling with the effort of simple tasks. Henry brought them extra bread for breakfast, taking care not to be seen by the other guards. The train arrives tomorrow, he told them quietly. We need to hide your papers. He glanced at Vader. The real ones and the others. Anna nodded. She had kept Vader's true identification, the papers proving he was David Weiss, hidden since their capture. If those were found, along with the forged military papers identifying him as Heinrich Weber, they would both be in grave danger. I have an idea, Anna said. She took a piece of bread and carefully hollowed out the center, creating a small cavity. With delicate fingers, she folded Vader's papers into a tight packet and slid them inside, then pressed the bread closed again. No one will look here, she explained. Henry had to smile at her cleverness. Keep it safe, he said. Then lowering his voice further, Father Benoit will come today. Listen carefully to what he says. The day passed with tense anticipation. Guards prepared for the transfer, checking lists and gathering supplies for the journey. Lieutenant Carver stalked through the barn like a hawk, his sharp eyes missing nothing. Twice he questioned Henry about procedures, seemingly looking for mistakes to criticize. At midday, Father Benoit arrived as promised. He moved among the prisoners, offering blessings and small comforts. When he reached Anna and Vader, he spoke in his usual gentle tone, but Henry, standing nearby, caught the hidden message in his words. Remember, the village chapel has 2 doors, the priest said as he handed Anna a small prayer card. The north one is never locked. Anna tucked the card into her sleeve, her face revealing nothing. Thank you, Father. When Father Benoit reached Henry, he clasped his hand warmly. The baker sends his regards, he murmured. His cart leaves at dawn for the next village. Henry nodded, understanding. A plan was forming. The baker's cart, the unlocked chapel door, a route out of danger. But could they make it work in time? That afternoon, the prisoners were marched through the village streets to the station for processing. Local people watched from windows and doorways, their faces a mixture of fear, pity, and curiosity. A few brave souls nodded to prisoners they recognized from the work details. One old woman even dared to throw a small flower toward Anna's feet. At the crowded station, confusion reigned as guards tried to organize the prisoners and their meager belongings. Henry stayed close to Anna and Vader, using his authority as a sergeant to keep other guards away. Remember what I said? He whispered as they waited. Stay strong. Anna clutched Vader's arm to steady him. I'm afraid, she admitted. The journey will be hard, and if Carver searches us at the other end, one step at a time, Henry said. Trust God to see us through. My mother used to say that, Anna replied with a sad smile. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the platform, the train finally arrived, a line of cattle cars with small barred windows. Henry's heart sank at the sight. How would Vader survive such a journey in his condition? The loading began, prisoners climbing awkwardly into the high cars with their bundles. Guards shouted orders, trying to maintain some semblance of organization. In the confusion, Father Benoit appeared at Henry's side. For the journey, he said, pressing something into Anna's hand, a small card with a prayer printed on it. But Henry saw there was something else hidden beneath it, a tiny key. God be with you, the priest added before melting back into the crowd. As Anna and Vader prepared to board, Lieutenant Carver appeared suddenly, his cold eyes narrowing at the sight of them. Wait, he ordered. This old man looks ill. He should be checked before boarding. Henry's stomach clenched with fear. If Carver ordered a medical inspection, it would mean removing clothing, checking for hidden items. The bread with the hidden papers would surely be found. Sir? Henry said quickly. We're behind schedule already. The train needs to leave before dark. Carver looked annoyed, but glanced at the setting sun. Fine. But they'll be thoroughly checked at the central camp. He pointed at Anna. Especially this one. I don't trust her. As they finally boarded the train, Henry managed to position himself as guard on their car. The door slammed shut with a terrible finality, and the train lurched forward, wheels screeching against the rails. Inside the cattle car, prisoners huddled together against the cold. There were no seats, no blankets, just the hard wooden floor and each other for warmth. Anna helped Fodder sit in a corner where the draft was less severe, then settled beside him, her arm protectively around his thin shoulders. Henry stood by the door, officially keeping watch, but in reality, keeping an eye on them. As darkness fell and the train picked up speed, most prisoners tried to sleep despite the uncomfortable conditions. The journey was every bit as difficult as they had feared. The train moved slowly through the snow-covered countryside, stopping frequently for unexplained delays. Cold air whistled through cracks in the wooden sides of the car, and the only light came from a single lantern hanging from the ceiling. By midnight, Vodder was shivering uncontrollably despite Anna's efforts to keep him warm. His forehead burned with fever when she touched it. He needs water, she whispered to Henry when he checked on them. And medicine, if possible. Henry nodded grimly. At the next stop, a small station where they were taking on coal, he slipped outside. The station house had a light on, and he made his way there, hoping to find help. Inside, a middle-aged woman in a Red Cross uniform was preparing coffee for the train crew. She looked up in surprise when Henry entered. "Sorry to disturb you, ma'am," he said, removing his helmet respectfully. "We have sick prisoners on the train. An old man with fever. Do you have any medicine you could spare?" The woman hesitated. "Prisoners? Germans?" "Yes, ma'am. But they're people too. The old man might not make it to morning without help." Something in Henry's earnest face must have moved her. She went to a cabinet and returned with a small bottle of pills and a canteen of fresh water. "This will help with fever," she said, handing them to Henry. "Not much, but better than nothing." "Thank you," Henry said gratefully. "God bless you." When he returned to the train, Anna's face lit up at the sight of the water and medicine. She quickly gave Vodder a pill and helped him drink small sips of the precious water. "Danke," she whispered to Henry. "You are a good man." As she tended to Fodder, Anna spoke softly in German, words of comfort and encouragement that Henry couldn't understand, but he didn't need to understand the words to recognize the love and care in her voice. A young mother with a small boy was sitting nearby, watching Anna with curious eyes. When her son began to cough, Anna immediately offered some of the water. The woman hesitated, then accepted with a nod of thanks. Soon Anna was moving quietly among the prisoners, offering what little help she could. A sip of water here, a comforting word there. Even some of the other guards watched with grudging respect. "She's something, isn't she?" one of them said to him. "Yes," Henry agreed, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "She sure is." The train rumbled on through the night, its rhythm like a heartbeat in the darkness. At some point, snow began to fall again, small flakes drifting past the barred windows like tiny stars. Henry found himself standing next to Anna as she looked out at the snow. "Beautiful. Even in war," she murmured. "Like hope," Henry replied. "It covers everything broken and makes it clean again, at least for a while." Anna smiled, a real smile that reached her tired eyes. "My mother used to say something similar. That hope is like snow. It comes when the world is darkest and coldest." As dawn broke over the frozen landscape, the train began to slow. They were approaching the central camp. Henry's heart raced with anxiety. This would be the most dangerous part of their journey. The arrival, the new guards, the stricter checks. "We're almost there," he told Anna. "Remember what Father Benoit said, and remember my promise. I won't let you suffer anymore." Anna clasped his hand briefly. "And I won't let you carry this burden alone," she whispered. "Whatever comes, we face it together." The train whistle blew, a long, lonely sound in the morning air. As they pulled into the station, Henry could see the camp in the distance, rows of barracks surrounded by fences, guards at watchtowers, a place where rules would be even stricter and escape even harder. But as he looked at Anna's determined face and felt the weight of the small wooden cross she had given him in his pocket, Henry found himself believing that somehow they would find a way. In this cold, brutal war that had taken so much from so many, perhaps a small miracle of mercy was still possible. The central camp loomed before them, a sprawling complex of barracks and fences that seemed to stretch for miles. As the train doors opened, a blast of cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of wood smoke and boiled cabbage. Guards shouted orders as prisoners climbed stiffly from the cattle cars, their legs numb from the long journey. Move along! Keep moving! The new guards were efficient and brusque, herding prisoners into lines with practiced ease. Henry helped Anna support fodder as they shuffled toward the processing building. The old man could barely walk, his breath coming in ragged gasps that formed small clouds in the frigid air. Just a little further, Anna encouraged him, her own face pale with exhaustion. Lieutenant Carver stood nearby, overseeing the transfer. His eyes narrowed when he spotted Henry with Anna and Vodder. "Sergeant Lawson," he called sharply, "you're needed at the supply truck. Another guard will take over here." Henry hesitated, reluctant to leave Anna and Vodder alone. "That's an order, Sergeant," Carver added, his voice like ice. "Yes, sir," Henry replied, with no choice but to obey. As he walked away, he cast one last glance over his shoulder. Anna's eyes met his briefly, a look that carried both fear and determination. The processing took hours. Each prisoner was registered, their papers checked, their few belongings searched. Henry, assigned to help unload supplies, could only catch glimpses of what was happening. He saw Anna and Vodder reach the registration table, saw Anna speaking to the officer in charge, her back straight despite her obvious fatigue. By nightfall, the prisoners had been assigned to barracks. Men and women were separated, which meant Anna and Vodder would be split up for the first time. Henry managed to discover that Anna had been placed in the women's section of Barracks 3, while Vodder was sent to the men's quarters in Barracks 5. The new camp commander, Major Richards, called the transferred guards for a briefing. Henry stood at attention, trying to focus on the orders being given despite his worry for Anna and Vodder. "We run a tight ship here," Richards was saying. "Each prisoner has an assigned task. Skilled workers, mechanics, carpenters, medics, will be utilized accordingly." This gave Henry an idea. When the briefing ended, he approached the major respectfully. "Sir, among the new arrivals is a trained nurse," he said. "She helped treat both prisoners and our men at the last camp. With your permission, she could be of use in the infirmary here." Richards looked skeptical. "A prisoner, treating our wounded? She's very skilled, sir. Saved several lives during a fever outbreak." The major considered this. "We are short-handed in medical—" "What's her name?" "Anna Schmidt, sir. She speaks good English and follows orders well." "I'll consider it," Richards said. "Have her report to the infirmary tomorrow for evaluation." "Thank you, sir," Henry said, relief washing through him. If Anna could work in the infirmary, she would have better conditions and more freedom to move around the camp. But what about Vodder? The old man was growing weaker by the day. Without Anna's constant care, how long would he last in the crowded, cold barracks? That night, Henry managed to speak briefly with Anna as she lined up for the evening meal outside her barracks. "The commander may assign you to the infirmary," he told her quickly. "I told him about your nursing skills." Hope flickered in Anna's tired eyes. "Thank you. But Vodder—" "I know," Henry cut in. "He's in Barracks 5. I'll check on him when I can." "They took his papers for review," Anna whispered, fear edging her voice. "They took everyone's." Henry's stomach knotted with worry. The hollowed bread with Vodder's true papers had made it through the journey, but the forged military ID was now in the hands of the camp administrator. If they looked too closely, asked too many questions. "One day at a time," Henry reminded her. "Trust God." Anna nodded, then asked, "What about Father Benoit's plan? The chapel key?" "It's more difficult here," Henry admitted. "The fences are higher, more guards, but don't lose hope. We'll find a way." A sharp whistle signaled the end of mealtime. As Anna turned to go, Henry added, "Remember what I promised. I won't let you suffer anymore." "And I won't forget," she replied softly. The next morning, Anna was summoned to the infirmary as Henry had hoped. The camp doctor, a weary man named Dr. Peterson, tested her knowledge of basic medical procedures. Anna's quiet competence impressed him, and by noon, she had been assigned to assist with the wounded soldiers in the main ward. Henry, meanwhile, requested guard duty near Barracks 5, hoping to check on Vodder. What he found worried him deeply. The old man lay on a thin mattress, his breathing labored, his face flushed with fever again. Without Anna's care, he had deteriorated quickly. During his break, Henry sought out the infirmary. Anna was changing bandages on a young soldier's arm, her movements gentle but efficient. "How is he?" she asked immediately, knowing why Henry had come. "Not good," Henry admitted. "The fever's back." Tears filled Anna's eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. "I must see him. I'll try to arrange it," Henry promised. "The doctor seems decent." When Henry approached Dr. Peterson with the request, the doctor was initially reluctant. "Prisoners visiting other barracks? Against regulations." "He's very ill, sir," Henry explained. "Possibly pneumonia. She's his daughter." The small lie slipped out easily. And she has medical training that could help him. Dr. Peterson sighed, removing his glasses to rub his tired eyes. I don't have enough staff as it is. If she can prevent another serious case. He nodded slowly. All right. She can check on him once a day, but with escort only. Thank you, sir, Henry said gratefully. That evening, he escorted Anna to Vader's bedside. The reunion was brief but emotional. Anna checked Vader's temperature, listened to his breathing, and mixed a herbal remedy from supplies she had gathered in the infirmary. Drink this, she urged, helping Vader sit up. It will help clear your lungs. As Vader sipped the medicine, Anna spoke softly to him in German, words of encouragement and comfort that Henry couldn't understand. But he didn't need to understand the words to see the love between them, a bond forged through shared suffering and sacrifice. When it was time to leave, Anna kissed Vader's forehead. Be strong, she whispered, for both of us. Back in the yard, as they walked toward the women's barracks, Henry noticed Anna shivering in the cold night air. Here, he said, removing his scarf and wrapping it around her neck. Can't have our nurse getting sick too. Anna touched the worn wool gratefully. You are always giving, she said. Your food, your warmth, your protection. Well, Henry replied with a small smile. My ma always said the good Lord blesses a cheerful giver. Your mother sounds wise, Anna said. Like mine was. They walked in companionable silence for a moment. Then Anna asked, Do you think we'll ever truly be free again, Henry? Not just from this camp, but from all the fear and hate this war has brought? Henry thought about it. Yes, he finally said. I have to believe that. Otherwise, what are we fighting for? In the days that followed, a routine developed. Anna worked in the infirmary, earning respect from both staff and patients with her skill and compassion. Each evening, Henry escorted her to visit Vader, whose condition improved slightly under her care. After each visit, they would walk slowly back across the yard, sharing quiet conversations about their hopes and fears. Lieutenant Carver remained a dark cloud on their horizon. He watched Anna with suspicious eyes, questioned Henry about his duties, and frequently checked the prisoner record. Henry knew it was only a matter of time before Carver found something to use against them. One morning, a commotion at the camp gates drew everyone's attention. A local family had arrived, carrying a small boy wrapped in blankets. Please, the mother begged in broken English. My son is very sick. The village doctor is gone. They say you have doctors here. The guards hesitated, unsure what to do with civilians at a military camp. Dr. Peterson was called, and after examining the boy, his face grew grave. Pneumonia, he told the camp commander. Severe. The village clinic is closed because their doctor was conscripted. If we don't treat him, he left the implications hanging. Major Richards frowned. This is a military facility, not a civilian hospital. Sir, Henry spoke up, forgetting his place. We have a nurse who has treated pneumonia successfully. The German woman, Anna Schmidt. All eyes turned to Henry, including Lieutenant Carver's cold stare. The prisoner? Richards asked skeptically. Yes, sir. She saved 3 men with similar symptoms at our last camp. After a moment's hesitation, Richards nodded. Bring her, but keep her under guard. Anna was summoned to the infirmary, where the boy, Luke, his mother called him, lay burning with fever, his small chest struggling for each breath. Without hesitation, Anna set to work, requesting herbs, hot water, and clean cloths. Throughout that day and into the night, Anna stayed at Luke's bedside, applying herbal compresses, helping him drink healing teas, and monitoring his breathing. The American nurse, Sarah, initially kept her distance, watching with skeptical eyes. But as hours passed, she began to help, impressed by Anna's knowledge and dedication. Where did you learn these remedies? Sarah asked as they prepared another compress. My mother, Anna replied softly. She was a teacher, but she knew the old ways of healing too. When medicine was scarce during the war, we used what nature provided. By dawn, Luke's fever had broken. His breathing, while still labored, had eased somewhat. His mother, who had refused to leave his side, wept with relief when Anna explained that the worst had passed. God bless you, she said in French, clasping Anna's hands. An angel in this terrible place. Even Dr. Peterson was impressed. I've rarely seen pneumonia respond so quickly, he admitted. Your herbal treatments. Would you be willing to teach our staff? For the first time since arriving at the camp, Anna smiled a real smile. Of course, she said. Healing should be shared, yes? That morning, as Henry escorted a weary but happy Anna back to her barracks, he gave her a small gift, a tin of precious coffee he had saved from his rations. For the healer, he said with a grin, you deserve it. Thank you, Anna said, accepting the tin with tired hands. But it was not just me. God works through all willing hearts, even in war. News of Luke's recovery spread quickly through both the camp and the nearby village. The next day, a village woman arrived at the gates with a basket of fresh bread. "For the German nurse," she insisted. The simple act of kindness seemed to break something open. More villagers began to bring small gifts: a jar of honey, fresh eggs, herbs from winter gardens. Anna shared everything with the other prisoners, especially the children and the elderly. Inspired by the growing goodwill, Anna asked permission to organize a prayer meeting in the infirmary. To her surprise, Major Richards approved the request, perhaps seeing how it improved morale among both prisoners and staff. The meeting was held on a Sunday afternoon. Prisoners and American soldiers gathered in the large infirmary ward, sitting side by side regardless of uniform or language. Father Benoit, who had continued to visit the camp, led the prayers in both French and English, while Anna translated into German. Henry stood at the back, watching as former enemies bowed their heads together, their voices joining in ancient words of hope and comfort. When he caught Anna's eye across the room, the look they shared held something new, not just the companionship of shared struggle, but a deeper connection that frightened and thrilled him all at once. That evening, as Henry walked Anna back from her visit with Fodder, she stopped suddenly in the yard. "I've been thinking," she said, looking up at the starry winter sky. "Perhaps this is why we are here, not just as prisoners and guards, but as people who can remind others of their humanity." Henry followed her gaze upward. "My grandpa used to say that stars are God's way of reminding us there's light even in the darkest times." "I like that," Anna said softly. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded paper. "I wrote to my mother's address in Dresden," she explained. "I know it's probably gone, but I needed to try." Henry understood. Sometimes hope needed action, even when the chance was small. "The mail truck comes tomorrow," he said. "I'll make sure it gets on." Christmas Eve arrived with a gentle snowfall that covered the camp in pristine white. Despite the hardships of war, a spirit of anticipation filled the air. Father Benoit had arranged for a special service, with permission for prisoners and guards alike to attend. The camp's large storage barn had been cleared and decorated with simple pine branches and handmade paper stars. As darkness fell, people gathered inside, their breath visible in the cold air. Candles provided the only light, their warm glow turning ordinary faces into paintings of gold and shadow. Father Benoit began with prayers in French, then invited others to participate. Anna, wearing Henry's scarf around her shoulders, stepped forward to read from the Psalms, her clear voice filling the hushed space. Then, to everyone's surprise, Henry walked to the front. "Where I come from in Kansas," he said, his voice a bit shaky at first. "We always sing Silent Night on Christmas Eve." He cleared his throat and began to sing, his deep voice gentle on the familiar tune. By the second verse, others joined in, first in English, then in German, French, and even Polish. Different languages, same melody, same meaning. For those precious minutes, there was no war, no division, only the shared celebration of hope born in darkness. After the service, people lingered, reluctant to break the spell of peace. Anna and Henry stepped outside, where the snow continued to fall in large, lazy flakes. "It's beautiful," Anna said, turning her face up to the sky. "Yes, it is," Henry agreed, though he was looking at her, not the snow. Anna caught his gaze and blushed slightly. "Henry," she began. "I know it's crazy," he said quickly. "A guard and a prisoner, an American and a German. But Anna, when this war ends, she interrupted gently, "many things will be possible that seem impossible now." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a handkerchief, simple white cotton with a small flower embroidered in one corner. "This was my mother's," she said, pressing it into Henry's hand. "To remember tonight. To remember that even in the darkest time, there is still beauty." Henry's fingers closed around the delicate fabric. "I won't let you suffer anymore," he whispered, repeating the promise that had become sacred between them. "And I won't let you walk alone," Anna replied softly. The peace of Christmas Eve shattered the next morning with the sound of boots on wooden floors and the crash of a door thrown open. Lieutenant Carver, accompanied by 2 guards, stormed into the women's barracks while it was still dark. "Anna Schmidt," he barked, "come with me immediately." Frightened women sat up in their bunks watching as Anna quickly pulled on her shoes and jacket. Her face was calm, but Henry, who had been summoned to the barracks entrance, could see the fear in her eyes. "What's happening?" he asked one of the other guards. "Surprise inspection," the man replied. "Carver's orders. He's checking the Jewish man too." Henry's blood ran cold. Somehow Carver had discovered the truth, or at least suspected it strongly enough to act. Anna was marched to the administration building, where Vodder had already been brought. The old man looked terrible, his face gray with exhaustion and fear. When Anna saw him, She tried to go to him, but the guards held her back. Anna Schmidt and Heinrich Weber, Carver announced, reading from a paper in his hand. Or should I say, Anna Schmidt and David Weiss. The room went silent. Anna's face drained of color, but she stood tall, her chin raised in defiance. During a routine check of records, Carver continued, discrepancies were found in Herr Weber's papers. Further investigation revealed that he is not, in fact, a German soldier, but a Jewish civilian traveling under false identification. He turned to Anna. And you, Fräulein Schmidt, have been complicit in this deception. Sir, Henry stepped forward, unable to stay silent. Whatever their circumstances, Sergeant Lawson, Carver cut him off coldly, your involvement in this matter is also under review. You are confined to quarters until further notice. 2 guards took Henry by the arms, leading him away. The last thing he saw was Anna's face, pale but determined, her eyes finding his across the room, a look that carried both love and goodbye. Henry was locked in the guards' quarters, a small room with a single window that looked out on the yard. For hours he paced the floor, praying more fervently than he ever had before. Outside, the day passed normally, prisoners at their tasks, guards at their posts, the routine of the camp undisturbed by the drama unfolding behind closed doors. Late in the afternoon, Henry noticed movement at the administration building. Anna and Vader were being led out, flanked by guards. Their destination was clear, the small detention cells used for prisoner infractions, a cold concrete building at the far end of the camp. Henry watched helplessly as they disappeared inside, his heart heavy with fear and guilt. He should have done more, planned better, found a way to protect them. Now they faced God knew what punishment, all for trying to survive in a world gone mad with hatred. As darkness fell, Henry knelt by his cot. Lord, he whispered, I don't know if I've done right or wrong in your eyes, but I do know that Anna and Vader are good people, caught in evil times. Please, help them now when I cannot. A soft knock at the door interrupted his prayer. Henry opened it to find Sarah, the American nurse, standing there with a tray of food. Thought you might be hungry, she said, glancing nervously down the hall. As she set the tray down, she slipped a folded paper onto his pillow. From Anna, she whispered. I smuggled it when they brought her to the infirmary to check her health. After Sarah left, Henry unfolded the note with trembling fingers. Anna's handwriting was small and neat. Dearest Henry, do not lose heart. Remember what we said on Christmas Eve. Even in darkness, there is light. Whatever happens, know that you have been that light for us. Keep faith. I will not let you walk alone, even if our paths must separate for a time. With love, Anna. Henry pressed the note to his heart, tears stinging his eyes. Somehow, even in her own fear and danger, Anna had found a way to comfort him. Her courage shamed and inspired him all at once. The next day dawned cold and clear. Henry, still confined to quarters, pressed his face to the window, watching for any sign of Anna or Vader. Mid-morning, a jeep arrived at the camp gates, an unusual sight that drew attention from guards and prisoners alike. A senior officer stepped out, his uniform decorated with the insignia of Allied command. He was greeted by Major Richards and escorted to the administration building. Something important was happening. Hours passed with no news. Henry alternated between pacing, praying, and watching out the window. Then, just as the winter sun began its early descent, there was another knock at his door. This time, it was a young private. Sergeant Lawson, your presence is requested at headquarters immediately. Henry straightened his uniform with shaking hands and followed the private across the yard. Snow crunched beneath their boots, and their breath formed clouds in the cold air. The administration building loomed ahead, its windows glowing with yellow light as dusk settled over the camp. Inside, Henry was led to Major Richards' office. The room fell silent as he entered. Major Richards sat behind his desk, his face unreadable. The senior officer from Allied Command stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. Lieutenant Carver was there too, his expression sour. But what caught Henry's breath was Anna, sitting in a chair by the wall, her face tired but calm. There was no sign of Vader. Sergeant Lawson, Major Richards began, some serious allegations have been made regarding your conduct with prisoners. Henry stood at attention, his heart hammering. Yes, sir. Lieutenant Carver claims you've shown improper favoritism, interfered with procedures, and possibly aided in concealing a prisoner's true identity. Henry swallowed hard but said nothing, denying it would be a lie, and he'd already compromised enough of his principles in this war. The senior officer turned from the window. At ease, Sergeant, he said in a British accent. We're not here for a court-martial. Henry relaxed slightly, confusion replacing some of his fear. Colonel Barnes has been sent to review camp procedures, Richards explained. His arrival coincided with yesterday's events. Colonel Barnes nodded. I've spent the day interviewing staff, prisoners, and locals. I've heard quite a story. He glanced at Anna with something like respect. Quite a story indeed. Lieutenant Carver stepped forward. Sir, regardless of any mitigating circumstances, regulations were broken. Military discipline. Yes, yes, Barnes interrupted with a wave of his hand. Military discipline is essential, but so is humanity, Lieutenant. Something you might reflect upon. Barnes turned to Henry. Father Benoit speaks very highly of you, Sergeant, as does Dr. Peterson. Even the village mayor sent a telegram to headquarters commending your compassionate interpretation of duty. Henry's eyes widened in surprise. He hadn't known any of this. As for Miss Schmidt, Barnes continued, her care for both Allied soldiers and fellow prisoners has been exemplary. The boy Luke and his family were particularly insistent that I understand her role in saving his life. Anna lowered her eyes modestly, but Henry could see a faint color in her cheeks. And Professor Weiss, Barnes said, using Vatter's real name and title for the first time, has suffered enough persecution without adding our own to the list. Professor Weiss? Henry asked, unable to contain himself. Is he in the infirmary? Barnes answered. Exhaustion and mild pneumonia, but he'll recover with proper care. Relief washed over Henry like a warm tide. Vatter was alive, his true identity acknowledged without punishment. However, Barnes continued more seriously, we cannot simply ignore the violation of protocols. There will need to be a formal record and appropriate consequences. Henry stood straight again, prepared to accept whatever punishment came. I understand, sir. Barnes exchanged a look with Major Richards, who cleared his throat. After reviewing the situation, we've reached a decision. Miss Schmidt and Professor Weiss will be released from detention and placed under the supervision of local civilian authorities, specifically Father Benoit and Mayor Dupont. Village custody, Anna explained softly, seeing Henry's confusion. We will live in the village, not the camp. As for you, Sergeant Lawson, Richards continued, you'll be reassigned to supply logistics, working between the camp and the village. Consider it a lateral transfer rather than a demotion. Henry could hardly believe what he was hearing. Not punishment, but a solution that would keep Anna and Vatter safe while allowing him to remain near them. He fought to keep his face professional, though his heart was singing. And Lieutenant Carver, Barnes added, turning to the stiff-faced officer, your attention to detail is noted. You'll be transferring to headquarters in Paris, effective immediately. Your administrative skills are needed there. Carver's face flushed with anger, but he knew better than to protest. Yes, sir, he said through gritted teeth. As the meeting concluded, Henry caught Anna's eye across the room. The small smile they shared held more than words could express. Relief, gratitude, and a cautious joy that neither had dared to hope for. The next day dawned bright and cold. Henry, now assigned to supply duties, drove the camp truck to the village to help Anna and Vatter settle into their new living arrangement. Father Benoit had offered them rooms in the small cottage behind the church. Modest accommodations, but warm and private. Vatter, still weak but improving, sat by the window in a patch of sunlight as Henry and Anna arranged the few belongings they had been allowed to bring from the camp. It feels like a dream, Anna said softly as she placed a small vase of winter greenery on the table. To have walls, a real bed. You deserve it, Henry replied, watching her move around the room with a grace that captivated him. Both of you do. Father Benoit arrived with bread and soup, welcoming them warmly to their new home. The village is happy to have you, he told them. Especially you, Anna. Our doctor is still away with the army. Your healing skills are much needed here. I would be honored to help, Anna said, her eyes bright with purpose. As they shared the simple meal, Henry noticed how Vatter watched them with knowing eyes. The old professor might be frail in body, but his mind remained sharp, missing nothing. So, young man, Vatter said when Father Benoit had left, what are your plans now? Plans, sir? Henry asked, taken aback. Yes, plans. When this war ends, as all wars eventually do, what then? Henry glanced at Anna, who was suddenly very interested in her soup. I haven't thought much beyond getting home to Kansas, he admitted. Back to the farm. Ah, a farmer. Vatter nodded approvingly. Honest work, growing things instead of destroying them. A good choice for after war. There was something in the old man's tone, a gentle pushing, an unspoken suggestion, that made Henry blush. Did Vatter know how he felt about Anna? Was he actually encouraging it? In the days that followed, a new routine emerged. Anna began working at the village infirmary, treating both locals and the occasional soldier. Her gentle skills and kind manner quickly earned her the respect of even the most suspicious villagers. Vatter, growing stronger each day, offered to teach the village children. Many had missed years of education due to the war, and the old professor delighted in sharing his knowledge of mathematics, science, and history. Henry divided his time between camp duties and the village. As the supply sergeant, he had legitimate reasons to visit often, bringing needed items and taking inventory. Each visit included time at the cottage where he would share a meal or simply talk with Anna and Vader. Winter slowly softened into early spring. The first green shoots appeared in the village gardens, and birds returned to nest in the eaves of the church. The war still raged elsewhere, but in their small corner of France, a fragile peace had taken root. One mild evening in late March, Anna invited Henry to sit with her on the cottage step. The sky was painted with the soft pinks and golds of sunset, and somewhere nearby, a thrush sang its evening song. "I received a letter today," Anna said, her voice carefully neutral. "My letter to Dresden was returned." Henry's heart sank. "I'm sorry, Anna." She nodded, eyes fixed on the distant horizon. "The house is gone. The whole street." She took a deep breath. "I knew it was likely, but still, to have it confirmed." Henry wanted to pull her close, to protect her from this fresh pain, but he settled for gently covering her hand with his. "You still have fodder," he reminded her. "And," he hesitated, "and me, if you want." Anna turned to look at him, her blue eyes studying his face as if memorizing every detail. "Yes," she said simply, "I do." In that quiet moment, something shifted between them, an unspoken understanding, a shared vision of a future neither had dared to fully imagine. The calm was shattered the next day by the arrival of a military. Rumors of a major Allied advance swept through the camp and village. Henry was called to extended duty, organizing supplies for the front. Anna doubled her hours at the infirmary, preparing for possible casualties. The villagers, sensing change in the air, organized a day of prayer and thanksgiving. It was partly religious observance, partly community gathering, an opportunity for locals, POWs under village custody, and American soldiers to come together as simply human beings rather than enemies. Tables were set up in the village square, laden with whatever food could be spared. Music played, a violin, an accordion, a soldier's harmonica. Children danced in circles, their laughter a balm to war-weary hearts. Henry found Anna standing at the edge of the celebration, watching with a soft smile as Vader taught a group of children a German folk dance. "He looks happy," Henry observed, coming to stand beside her. "He is," Anna agreed. "For the first time since we fled Dresden, I think he feels safe." They stood in comfortable silence, shoulders almost touching. Then Anna said, "I baked something for you." She handed him a small parcel wrapped in cloth. Inside was a perfectly formed loaf of bread, its crust golden brown, its aroma rich and inviting. "You baked this? For me?" Henry was touched beyond words. "To thank you," Anna explained, "for keeping your promise. I won't let you suffer any more. You said that first day, and somehow, despite everything, you've made that true." Henry swallowed the lump in his throat. "Anna, He searched for the right words. "When this war is over, I'd like to build a life where I can keep that promise every day." Anna's eyes widened as she understood what he was really saying. "Henry, I know it's too soon," he hurried on, "and there'd be complications, an American and a German, paperwork, my family back home, but if you were willing to try, to see if maybe we could—" "Yes," Anna interrupted, her voice steady and sure, "but not yet. Not until all those we love are safe and the world has stopped burning." It was enough, a promise for the future, a hope to carry them through whatever remained of the war. That hope was tested the very next morning. News arrived that the Allied offensive was succeeding beyond expectation. German forces were retreating across France. The end of the war, at least in Europe, suddenly seemed possible. For the American soldiers, it was cause for celebration. For Henry, it brought a bittersweet realization. Soon he would be sent home to Kansas, thousands of miles from Anna. He found her in the church garden, planting early vegetables in the freshly turned soil. She looked up as his shadow fell across the ground, and immediately knew something had changed. "You're leaving," she said. Not a question, but a statement. Henry nodded. "Orders came this morning. My unit ships back to England next week, then home." Anna stood slowly, brushing dirt from her hair. "I knew this day would come. I'll write," Henry promised. "Every day. And as soon as things settle, I'll find a way back to you. Or bring you to Kansas if you'd rather." "I believe you," Anna said, managing a small smile despite the tears gathering in her eyes. "And I'll wait, however long it takes." They spent every possible moment together in the days that followed. Henry showed Anna pictures of his family farm, describing the vast wheat fields and the big sky of Kansas. Anna shared stories of her childhood in Dresden, of university life before the Nazis, of her mother's garden that had been her first classroom in healing plants. Vader watched their growing love with approving eyes. "You have my blessing," he told them the night before Henry's departure. "Not that you need it, but you have it nonetheless." The morning of separation arrived too soon. Henry stood in his travel uniform, duffel bag at his feet, as Anna and Vader came to the village square to say goodbye. Around them, other soldiers were boarding trucks, calling final farewells to local friends. "I have something for you," Henry said, pressing a small package into Anna's hand. Inside was a simple silver ring, not fancy, but solid and true, like his feelings for her. "It was my grandmother's," he explained. "Ma sent it when I wrote to her about you." Anna's eyes widened. "You told your mother about me?" "Of course," Henry smiled. "She says any woman with enough grit to survive what you have and still keep her heart kind is welcome in our family." Anna slipped the ring onto a chain around her neck, close to her heart. "I'll keep it safe until you return. I promise I will," Henry said, his voice thick with emotion. "As soon as I can." Their goodbye was brief, a tight embrace, a gentle kiss, a whispered, "I love you," that neither had said aloud before this moment. Then Henry was climbing into the truck, watching Anna's figure grow smaller as distance pulled them apart. The journey home was long and disjointed. Trucks to the coast, a ship across the channel, weeks of processing in England, then finally the voyage to America. Throughout it all, Henry wrote faithfully, pouring his heart onto paper, sending his words across the ocean to the woman who had changed him forever. Kansas welcomed him with open arms and waving wheat. His family, thinner and more careworn than when he'd left, cried and laughed and thanked God for his safe return. The farm needed work after years with too few hands to tend it, and Henry threw himself into the task, finding healing in physical labor and familiar routines. But his heart remained partly in France, with Anna. Her letters arrived irregularly, the mail system still chaotic in post-war Europe. She wrote of Vader's improving health, of her work in the village, of her dreams for their future. She never complained about the separation or the uncertainty, but Henry could read between the lines. She was waiting faithfully, but the waiting was hard. Winter melted into spring, spring bloomed into summer. The war in Europe officially ended in May, bringing jubilation to Henry's small farming community. But the victory celebrations only sharpened his sense of separation from Anna. He should be sharing this joy with her, not reading about it in weeks-old letters. Finally, after months of paperwork and planning, Henry found a solution. A relief agency was hiring Americans to help with reconstruction efforts in war-torn Europe. With his military experience and farm knowledge, Henry was a perfect candidate. "You're going back?" his mother asked when he told her the news, her face a mixture of understanding and sorrow. "I have to, Ma," Henry explained. "She's there, and I promised." His mother nodded slowly. "Then you should take this." She pressed a small Bible into his hands, his father's, carried through the First World War and kept close ever since. "For both of you, as you build your life." With his family's blessing, Henry set sail for France once more, this time as a civilian rather than a soldier. The crossing seemed endless, each day stretching his patience as he imagined the reunion waiting on the other shore. When he finally arrived at the small village where he'd left his heart, it was a golden summer afternoon. The war's scars were still visible. Damaged buildings, missing men, the lingering shadow of grief in people's eyes. But there was life too. Children playing in the square, women tending gardens, old men smoking pipes in the sunshine. Henry stepped off the local train, carrying only a simple bag of clothes, his father's Bible, and a pouch of wheat seeds from the Kansas farm, a piece of home to plant in new soil. His eyes scanned the platform anxiously, and then he saw her. Anna stood at the far end, clutching his last letter in her hand. The summer breeze stirred her hair, now grown longer, and caught back with a ribbon. Wildflowers bloomed at her feet, yellow and purple against the weathered boards of the platform. For a moment, neither moved, as if afraid the vision might vanish if they did. Then Anna ran toward him, her face alight with joy, and Henry dropped his bag to catch her in his arms. They clung to each other, laughing and crying at once, the months of separation dissolving in the warmth of their embrace. "You came back," Anna whispered against his shoulder. "I promised I would," Henry replied, his voice rough with emotion. "I won't let you suffer anymore, remember?" Anna looked up at him, her blue eyes shining. "And I won't let you walk alone." From the garden path beyond the station, Fodder waved to them, his thin face wreathed in a smile. Behind him, villagers had gathered, drawn by the news of Henry's return. Someone began to ring the church bells, their joyful sound rolling across the summer fields. Hand in hand, Henry and Anna walked toward their future, a future born in the darkness of war, but nurtured by acts of kindness, courage, and love. The path ahead would not be easy. There were still wounds to heal, both visible and hidden, both personal and shared. But they would face whatever came together, their love a shelter in any storm. As they reached the garden gate, Henry paused to look back at the village, once scarred by war, now healing through simple acts of mercy. He thought of all they had endured to reach this moment, all the suffering and sacrifice, all the small choices that had led them here. "What are you thinking?" Anna asked, her hand warm in his. "That sometimes," Henry said softly, "even in the darkest times, God plants seeds of hope. And if we're brave enough to tend them, they bloom," Anna finished for him, "even in the most unlikely soil." The village church bells continued to ring, their sound joined now by children's laughter and the murmur of welcoming voices. As Henry and Anna walked through the garden gate, arm in arm, the summer sunlight turned the world to gold around them. Wheat fields and stone cottages, the spire of the church and the faces of friends. This was their victory, not the triumph of armies or nations, but the quiet courage of hearts that refused to surrender to hatred or fear. In a world still healing from the wounds of war, they had found a peace more precious than any treaty could secure. The peace that comes from loving deeply, forgiving completely, and choosing mercy when it would be easier to turn away. "Welcome home," Anna said, as they approached the cottage door where their life together would begin. Henry squeezed her hand, his heart full beyond words. Home wasn't Kansas anymore, nor was it Dresden. Home was wherever they were together, building something new from the ashes of the old world. "Yes," he answered simply. "Home." As the cottage door closed behind them, the sound of laughter drifted on the summer air. In the garden, Vater began to hum an old German lullaby, his voice joining the church bells in a harmony that rose above the village. Once divided by war, now united by the healing power of compassion. And in that moment, the promise was complete. No more suffering alone, no more walking separate paths, just two people who had found each other across the chasms of conflict, their love a bridge strong enough to carry them forward into whatever peace might bring. "I won't let you suffer anymore," Henry had promised in a cold French barn in what seemed another lifetime. "And I won't let you walk alone," Anna had keeping faith through darkness and distance. Now, standing in the warm light of a new beginning, those words were no longer just comfort in hardship or hope for the future. They were the foundation of a life built not on the shifting sands of wartime chance, but on the solid ground of chosen love, a love tested in fire and found unbreakable. Outside, the wheat fields rippled in the summer breeze, golden waves beneath a boundless sky. Inside, two hearts that had learned to sing in harmony during war's discord began the sweet, everyday music of peace. A melody as simple and profound as bread broken and shared, as enduring as mercy in a merciless world, as holy as love freely given when everything else is lost.